I hosted a Pokemon starter elimination game on my stream consisting of the starter Pokemon from generations 1 through 9, and this is the result of what went down. This will also cover how much Pokemon has improved or dropped compared to their Generation 8 edition results. Without further ado, let's get into the results. In 27th place, we have number 1 in the Pokédex and the very first grass starter, Bulbasaur. Not only is this the second elimination game in a row where a Kanto starter has finished last, this is the first time a Pokemon has gotten last place without a single negative vote being tossed their way. Bulbasaur was 100% screwed over by the wheel spins, and only wheel spins that targeted a group or someone by complete random chance. Bulbasaur finished 9th out of the 9 grass starters, 3rd out of the 3 Kanto starter Pokemon, and suffered a 5 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 26th place, we have Tepig, the Pokemon truly deserving of getting last out of all starters and one I will always put near the bottom of my list. I'm not going to apologize for this. I will always respect Tepig, especially once it starts evolving. Tepig was one of the main targets in this elimination game, and he was the second eliminated. Tepig finished 9th out of the 9 Fire-type starter Pokemon, 3rd out of the 3 Generation 5 starter Pokemon, and suffered a 12th placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 25th place, we have Fuecoco, the first Generation 9 starter and the first Fire-type starter I permanently chose to carry through our region. I personally think he deserved better, but was one of the first targeted Pokemon. Fuecoco finished 8th out of the 9 Fire-type starters, 3rd out of the 3 Generation 9 starters, and was a brand new addition to the elimination game for the Generation 9 edition. Not a good first showing, but hopefully Generation 10 edition willing, Fuecoco will be loved by my community and less hated by a specific someone. In 24th place, we have the second Generation 9 starter Pokemon, Sprigatito, which honestly was kinda surprising to me. Affectionately dubbed Weed Cat by many in my community, and probably the entire Pokemon community in general, I expected the first showing to be a little better. I'm not a cat person, so this placement doesn't really bother me so much, so yeah, I only wish that Fuecoco finished ahead of him. Sprigatito finished 8th out of the 9 grass-type starters, 2nd out of the 3 Generation 9 starters, and was a new addition for the Generation 9 edition. In 23rd place, we have the first Generation 2 starter on this list, and the Pokemon with the most placements dropped in the elimination game, Chikorita. Now, I don't think Chikorita deserves to be this low on the list, but as always, certain community members beat their fangs at it immediately after Fuecoco went down, leading to this placement. Chikorita finished 7th out of the 9 grass-type starters, 3rd out of the 3 Generation 2 starters, and suffered a 21 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 22nd place, we have the second Generation 5 starter on this list, Snivy. Now, Snivy, similar to Bulbasaur and the other grass types, suffered from bad wheel luck in this elimination game. Grass starters were unfortunately hit the hardest and led to them being picked off for being at the lowest HP. I honestly think Snivy deserved way better. Snivy finished 6th out of the 9 grass-type starters, 2nd out of the 3 Generation 5 starters, and suffered a 15 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 21st place, we have our first Generation 6 starter, Fennekin. Fennekin is one of those Pokemon I personally don't care for much, and I honestly dislike Delphox in Pokemon Unite. This placement probably does suit it, but I think a certain other Generation 6 starter could finish with or below him and would be perfectly fit here as well. Fennekin finished 7th out of the 9 Fire starter Pokemon, 3rd out of the 3 Generation 6 starter Pokemon, and suffered a 9 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 20th place, we have one of the worst things to have ever happened in this entire elimination game. The best Hoenn starter and best grass-type starter, Treecko. Treecko unfortunately suffered at the hands of a bad status and a new viewer who chose to attack him. My boy deserved a minimum of a top 10 placement. Treecko finished 3rd out of the 3 Generation 3 starter Pokemon, 5th out of the 9 grass-type starters, and suffered a 16 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 19th place, we have our first Generation 4 starter Pokemon, Chimchar. Chimchar is a Pokemon I've found that members in my community don't like much, and I don't think it deserves near as much hate as it gets from them. I actually really like him. Chimchar finished 3rd out of the 3 Generation 4 starters, 6th out of the 9 Fire-type starters, and suffered a 10 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 18th place, we have one of the 3 Pokemon that managed to evolve during this elimination game, Marshtomp. Something I plan on improving in the next elimination game is the difficulty involved with evolution. Compared to spinning the wheel 3 times in the first elimination game, this one suffered from one wheel having many options and not enough ways to gain experience. Marshtomp had an early dominance but was swiftly attacked and dealt with once his improved power made him a threat. Marshtomp finished 2nd out of the 3 Generation 3 starters, 9th out of the 9 Water-type starters, and suffered an 8th placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 17th place, we have a Pokemon that deserves so much worse, and I mean it with all of my heart. I hate Piplup. It should be in 26th, only beating Tepig if you ask me, but that's not the case. Piplup finished 2nd out of the 3 Generation 4 starters, 8th out of the 9 Water-type starters, and suffered a 2 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 16th place, we have the final Generation 4 starter Pokemon and my first real win of the elimination game, Turtwig. Turtwig was my first starter Pokemon in this edition to claim victory over the other 2 Pokemon from his generation, and I'm very proud of him. Turtwig finished 1st out of the 3 Generation 4 starters, 4th out of the 9 Grass-type starters, and suffered a 10 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 15th place, we have another Pokemon that absolutely deserves better, and my Generation 7 starter, Popplio. Honestly, I don't know what to say here. He should have done better, but it was not to be. Popplio finished 3rd out of the 3 Generation 7 starters, 7th out of the 9 Water-type starters, and improved by 8 placements from the Generation 8 edition. In 14th place, we have the 2nd Generation 1 starter Pokemon, and a Pokemon that has gained a lot of hate from its overrated status over the years, Charmander. I think Charmander should do better than this, but considering how much my community on the strong hate for him train, 14th is pretty good. Charmander finished 2nd out of the 3 Generation 1 starters, 5th out of the 9 Fire-type starters, and improved by 4 placements from the Generation 8 edition. In 13th place, we have another one of my main starter Pokemon, and the one I will admit I don't feel like I bonded with enough, Sobble. The fact that Sobble didn't finish 1st among the Generation 8 starters is, and will forever be, a crime. Sobble finished 3rd out of the 3 Generation 8 starters, 6th out of the 9 Water-type starters, and improved by 8 placements from the Generation 8 edition. In 12th place, we have a Pokemon that absolutely deserves to be this low and should have possibly been lower. The winner of the Generation 8 edition, and one of the reasons why I try to limit collusion in elimination games so that persons support the Pokemon they actually like and not the ones their friends or their significant others happen to support, Rowlet. Rowlet finished 2nd out of the 3 Generation 7 starters, 3rd out of the 9 Grass-type starters, and suffered an 11 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. Absolutely deserves, you annoying ass owl. In 11th place, we have another bottom tier Pokemon in my opinion, and one that should never, and I mean never, place above 20th on an elimination game, but somehow keeps doing fairly well to support from persons who I know prefer other Pokemon of the same type. Congratulations on barely missing top 10, Chespin! Chespin finishes 2nd out of 3 Generation 6 starters, 2nd out of the 9 Grass-type starters, and dropped 3 placements from the Generation 8 edition. Our first top 10 finisher, and the 10th place, we have the final Generation 9 starter Pokemon, Quaxly. Quaxly literally survived by being ignored by most persons during the Elimination game to have a top 10 finish during its Generations edition of the Elimination game. The best performance out of a Pokemon that had only been around for 1 year when the Elimination game started. Quaxly finished first out of the 3 Generation 9 starters, 5th out of the 9 Water-type starters, and was a new addition to the Pokemon Starter Elimination game for the Generation 9 edition. In 9th place, we have another Pokemon that surprised me by how well it did, being Oshawott. Oshawott isn't a Pokemon I like much, and I honestly don't like its final evolution. However, Dewott is cool. Oshawott finished first out of the 3 Generation 5 starters, 4th out of the 9 Water-type starters, and improved by 9 placements from the Generation 8 edition. In 8th place, we have the final Grass-type starter, and honestly, one of the least cool Grass types to be the final one remaining, but here we are, with Grookey as the 8th place finisher. Grookey finished 2nd out of the 3 Generation 8 starters, 1st out of the 9 Grass-type starters, and improved by 11 placements from the Generation 8 edition. In 7th place, we have my first permanent starter Pokemon, and a Pokemon that should have gone further if you ask me, Totodile. Last time, Totodile was one of the 2 Pokemon that was fully evolved during the Elimination game. Totodile finished 2nd out of the 3 Generation 2 starter Pokemon, 3rd out of the 9 Water-type starters, and suffered a 2 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 6th place, barely missing a top 5 placement, is Generation 3's highest placing starter Pokemon, Torchic. After fully evolving in the previous Elimination game, Torchic has another stellar performance that was cut short by 1 toxic poisoning. Torchic finishes 1st out of the 3 Generation 3 starters, 4th out of the 9 Fire-type starter Pokemon, and suffered a 3 placement drop from the Generation 8 edition. In 5th place, we have one of the worst top 5 finishers I've ever seen in the Elimination game, being the final Generation 8 starter Pokemon, Scorbunny. Getting votes from a few new viewers and managing to avoid most of the conflict is what brought this undeserving bunny all the way to 5th place. Scorbunny finishes 1st out of the 3 Generation 8 starters, 3rd out of the 9 Fire-type starters, and improved by 8 placements from the Generation 8 edition. In 4th place, we have another undeserving starter Pokemon in the top 5, and one honestly that could have been amazing if Game Freak knew how to keep Pokemon on all 4s and not insist on weird bipedal animals. That's right, Litten is 4th place in this Elimination game and gained a lot of support throughout the run. However, when its main supporter became busy due to real life, Litten's time was up. Litten finished 1st out of the 3 Generation 7 starters, 2nd out of the 9 Fire-type starters, and improved by 13 placements from the Generation 8 edition. Wow! We've made it to the top 3, and I must say, this was easily the best top 3 out of any Pokemon Elimination game I have ever had. 3 different Pokemon from 3 different generations, each being the number 1 finisher for their generation, but only one can be the winner. In 3rd place, the 3rd Pokemon to evolve during this Elimination game and one of the best starter Pokemon ever made, Frogadier! Frogadier had one of the toughest Elimination games, being attacked early on but recovering and pushing through. Frogadier was targeted, lost most of its good moves, preventing it from being able to properly fight back against the odds, but in the end, managed a strong top 3 finish. Frogadier finishes 1st out of the 3 Generation 6 starters, 2nd out of the 9 Water-type starters, and improved by 17 placements from the Generation 8 edition. The 2nd most improved Pokemon for this Elimination game. Well deserved and well done to the Froakie line. In 2nd place, the most improved Pokemon from the Generation 8 to the Generation 9 edition. The best starter Pokemon to have ever been made in all of Pokemon, and my favorite evolutionary line and Pokemon of all time, Squirtle! Now, in the Generation 8 edition, Squirtle was targeted from the get-go due to chat knowing he was my favorite, and was one of the reasons I had to put in place a no trolling rule for the elimination games. Not only does it ruin the fun, but think about all the time, energy someone puts in to make something for people to enjoy, for them to use it as a way to hurt or troll you. Not fun now, is it? Squirtle was also the Pokemon that was voted on by the most individuals in the elimination game positively, and suffered from its supporters only dropping by for 1 or 2 streams during the entire elimination game. Yet, even with that setback, when it was down by more than 70 points and paralyzed, Squirtle managed one last hurrah and brought Quilava down from over 100 points to under 90 points before paralysis stole Squirtle's last 2 attacks and led to its inevitable defeat. Squirtle finished first out of the 3 Kanto starters, first out of the 9 Water-type starters, and improved by 22 placements from the Generation 8 edition of the elimination game. He may not have won, but to me, he's still the GOAT of all starter Pokemon. Congratulations, Squirtle, on being the best Kanto starter and the best Water starter and the most improved starter from Generation 8 to the Generation 9 edition. And finally, in first place, the Fire starter from my favorite generation of Pokemon. The first starter Pokemon I ever chose before switching permanently over to his Water-type brethren of the region, and my easy choice for a starter in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Give it up for the winner of the Generation 9 edition of the Pokemon Starter Elimination Game, finishing with a total of 121 HP, Quilava! Now, some would call this a dominant victory. I would not. Quilava, similar to many Pokemon, benefited heavily from the circumstances surrounding the elimination game. Quilava was the second Pokemon to evolve and was also targeted and put on low HP in the middle of the top 10, and was surely on his way out. Fortunately for him, the items that were on Grookey and Litten took attention off of him, allowing him to recover and quickly take a lead while actively sabotaging the only Pokemon who had super effective moves against him, leading to an evolved Pokemon using its improved damage and healing from votes to overpower the competition. I obviously would have preferred Squirtle, but my favorite Fire-type starter winning the elimination game is also fine with me. Quilava finished first out of the 3 Generation 2 starters, first out of the 9 Fire-type starters, and improved by 10 placements from the Generation 8 edition. I hope you enjoyed this video and all of the recaps that led to this final video. I know I didn't finish doing recaps, and I want to apologize for that, especially to those who are keeping up with it. For the next elimination game, I will try my best to ensure that the recaps keep coming, and for those of you that would like to participate in elimination games, stop by either twitch.tv/Hoenn or this YouTube channel, Hoenn, during my live streams, which typically happen on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The next elimination game starts this coming Monday, the 29th of April, and will feature the early bird game Pokemon from the 9 generations of Pokemon. Those are Pidgey, Spearow, Hoot Hoot, Tailo, Wingull, Starly, Pidove, Fletchling, Pikipek, Rookidee, and Wattrel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on Monday for the elimination game and Saturday for the start of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tier list videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, whatever time it is for you. Just hope you have a wonderful time. Alright then, peace!